Well, tonight, newly elected NDC minority leaders in Parliament have taken their case to the Speaker of Parliament in the face of opposition from 70 rebel colleagues. Now, those 70 rebel MPs have been holding a press conference today to register their protest against the decision to remove the Haruna Idrisu Muntaka and Mubarak-led minority leadership. Whilst that was happening, at the same time, the NDC national executives led by Johnson Sirin Ketia and Fifi Kwete also called their own press conference at which the new leaders, Dr. Keselato Forsing, was also allowed now to formally accept his appointment and declare a roadmap forward. Now there's a meeting that he set for next week Tuesday, at which they all hope they can close ranks and move forward. But that's we've been breaking that story as it develops over the day across the country. The various regions, the NDC branches and regional caucuses are all now declaring their support one way or the other, as we now seeing come through thick and fast. From the Volta region, Emefa Apawu, we're seeing the Volta regional executives have come together to fully throw their weight behind the new leaders.
Yes, and this is the Volta Regional Chairman, Mauto Agbavito. They've described the new leader of the NDC side in Parliament as a great politician with a solid track record. He appealed to the outgoing leadership to come to terms with a reshuffle for the common good of the NDC. For us in the Volta region, he says, we have absolute confidence in the new team to deliver on their mandate, and we pray and seek support from the entire NDC group in this regard. So we're told that there have been other statements from other regions that we'll be talking about. It says, for his part, the new leader of the NDC side, Dr. Keselato Forsing, assured the voter executives of his commitment to unite the party in Parliament. So they called on him today, and in attendance were the Deputy Chief Whips, Ahmed Ibrahim, Madam Comfort Doyo Gansa, the MP for North Dai, Joycelyn Tete, and the team were accompanied by the Volta Regional Chairman himself, including the Regional Vice Chairman, Egypt Kobla Kudoto, the Regional Secretary, James Guno, amongst others.
And if you go to the Western region, there's and in the Western region, because that's where Amako Fribois hails from, and the NDC Western Regional Youth Wing have also gone public today, declaring their support for him and declaring that they would work closely with him to execute the party's agenda in the region. They have no doubt that he can do the job. We've seen also a similar statement from the Central region where Dr. Keselato Forsing, who is now the newly appointed minority leader, hails from, where they also firmly are supporting. In fact, the chiefs
of
yes, his constituency have also gone public to back him fully. We know this has led the party divided down through the middle, particularly in Parliament. And the grassroots are also showing their own support. Yesterday, we saw the protest in Asawasi, the burning of ties. The police had to be called in to try and bring things under control. But this is the thing. There are many who believe this is playing into the hands of their main opponents in the 2024 elections, the MPP, because prior to this, the MPP, people many believe, were on the ropes. So how will this play out in Parliament? Now the Parliament is set to resume next week or a couple of weeks away, and how is the majority side in the House viewing what is playing out? I want to bring in the majority chief whip, Mr. Arnold Dompre, joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Dompre, thanks for your time here on Newsnight.
Thank you, Ivan.
I wonder, have you got a view on what is happening at all?
Of course, we have interest. It would be pretentious on my part to say that we have no views and we are just sitting aloof and not concerned. We are concerned beyond the fact that the leadership, the Honorable Muntaka, Haruna and Co, and the present leadership are all people who work closely. We work closely. We are friends. We share a lot of things in common. Beyond that, we also have a contest, a political contest. So, and you also bear in mind the closeness of the numbers we have in Parliament now. You recall when we had issues with one of our MPs, the effect of it has been there on us. So, I just thought that it would have learned a lesson from the difficulties we have gone through. But clearly you can see that our colleagues are sharply divided. I have never witnessed a situation where leadership is nominated in Parliament, and then you have to get people across the country to either support or not to support. It's quite interesting, but we are watching keenly. We are taking note, and we wish them all the best. But it looks like the cracks is not over yet, and I pray for them, but it looks like it's getting worse, and I hope they will be able to get over it. Atuforton is a very good friend, fine gentleman. Kwame Abuja, very hardworking. But the experience of Muntaka and Haruna Idris, so the public, if you also gauge the public mood, the public views, it's quite admirable. And these are people you cannot just wish away. I've listened to a couple of their press conferences, and it looks like something is not adding up, and it's creating a lot of distaste in the minds and in their rank and file. It's quite unfortunate. I just thought they could have handled this well. But for me, if the cracks get deeper, it's good for me. It's good for me when the
Are you doing
deeper.
anything actively to deepen it?
No, that I will not. I mean, I don't have that mandate. I don't have that ability. We are just putting our house in order. Not too long ago, we also have our own issues. Before you recall, we also had our own issues. But I'm saying that if their cracks get deeper, and a number of them on their side are disillusioned and worried, it gives me an edge, It gives me an edge in terms of the numbers, in terms of having an upper hand to do what I have to do, get government business passed and all that. But beyond that, we are also one entity, and one would have expected that this matter would have been handled seamlessly. But clearly, yes, I heard the Honorable Cletus Avoka lament, and he is a senior person in the chamber. There are people in the chamber that we respect so much. The Honorable Cletus Avoka is one of them. And when they speak, they don't just speak, they speak out of experience. So when he lamented and kind of described his aversion, for want of a better expression, for the decision, what the national leaders have put out, you could see that something is not adding up. But whatever it is, we are very focused. We are very focused. But unfortunately, whether the decision stands or is amended, it will still create a problem for their front. You understand? Because when the decision stands, as it stands now, there are people who are very loyal to the two who have been ousted, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu and the Honorable Muntaka, who are not going to be happy with the new leadership. And if the decision is changed again, bear with me, the so-called JM loyalists are also not going to be happy. So I don't know how their situation will get better. But as I said, if the cracks get deeper, the merrier for me.
Well, whilst they try to resolve those internal issues, let's take a look at the team or the names that they've put forward. Ato Agbuja Ibrahim and Doyo Ganza. Let's put them side by side. Those on your side, does it send any shivers down the spine of the majority when you look at the names that have been put forward?
No. Well, in terms of experience, I would say that the predecessors were more experienced. Haruna, I don't think, apart from our leader, the Abuche Mensah, nobody up front is more experienced than Haruna. Nobody up front is more experienced than the Honorable Muntaka. And I think even Abeji, they are more experienced. Parliamentary where the experience counts a lot, plays a significant role. So if we were not even scared of these very experienced ones, so to tell me that these new ones are sending any fears down our spine, no. But
so
we are not underrating them in any way.
You describe this new team.
We work with him. Honorable Agboja, we know his dedication to duty, and all these people, they are all fine gentlemen. And so, but there's nothing like fear at all.
But you describe them as inexperienced? Is that what I hear you say?
No, I said that in relative terms. I made a comparison. In comparison, that Honorable Haruna Idrisu, who is most experienced, apart from the Honorable Chairman Sabons, we were not scared of him. We worked with him. We forged a strong niche with him, and we got government business passed as we wished. Muntaka himself has been in leadership. only heavens know the number of times. Very, very experienced. Many occasions we're able to beat them to their plan. So it's about, putting your tactics together and then also strategizing appropriately. And I think that we've been up to the task.
Well, you've heard the reasons that the party is giving for this particular decision, the next election, about the economy, energy, amongst others. You think the reasons they've given is tenable?
I don't think it's tenable. But again, I don't want to dwell on that. That is their reason, okay? We are going into battle with them. Whatever reasons they want to assign, it is up to them. But for the chairman to say that it's about the economy, let's see. It's early days yet. If it's about the economy, then probably they should also look at their candidate again. Their preferred candidate. Now, arguably, all of them are gravitating towards JM. So it's about the economy. Then probably within their party, there are more economies in their party than JM. But as I said, they are assigning their own reasons. It is not for us to accept or not to accept. We are focused on what we want to do. They have mapped up a strategy. It is up to us also map a counter strategy which will annual to our benefit in the scheme of things.
I guess your team will be smiling all the way to Parliament on the 7th because perhaps they've made the battle or the parliamentary battle easier for you.
Well, nobody forced them to press this button. They did themselves, and they must bear. They must they must carry the consequences themselves. It's about the decision, and they thought that. I think that they thought through it and they made this decision. They will carry the consequences. It's early days yet. Let's see, but we are not underrating anybody. After Forsen, we know what he can do. Kwame Abuja, we know him very well. We are not going to underrate them. We'll work closely with them. After all, it's not fiscal battle that we are going to go into. It's a battle of ideas. And I believe that we will have the upper hand eventually.
Okay. We're grateful. That's the majority Chief Whip. Ano Dompre.
Let's pick the thoughts of political scientist, former head of the KNUSC Political Science Department, Dr. Marco Ban joins us on the line. Doc, so I'm pretty sure you've been observing what has been happening with the NDC over the last couple of days. Today, a series of press conferences, those for and against, threats issued. The party's in danger. Suspend. We don't recognize. We've appointed, but those who appointed of us have accepted. Where do you stand on all this?
This is what I refer to as an unforced error. It's an error. They can do what they've done, but this is not the way you do it. It has to be built on consensus. There are so many problems that have come up. I'm sure the party, newly elected leaders, they thought they had the power and they can do this. They don't have that power. Right now, the majority is on the side of those who have been removed. When you go to Parliament, the party apparatus has no official power in Parliament. They don't. Whatever the party wants to be done in Parliament, it has to go through the MPs. Parliament is the domain of MPs, not party officials, not chairman, not secretary. That's the problem. That's the first thing they should have realized. They didn't know that. Now they see, okay, what are we going to do now that they say no? You have brought complete division into the party, unnecessary. You understand? Look, isn't it Mutaka who engineered the election of the speaker? Isn't he the one? And very quickly forgotten about all of that. Atoforsi is in a precarious position. He was part of the leadership. Now you put him in front against his other senior members. How is he going to look like? And he has accepted it. First of all, you shouldn't have forced him to accept it right now. When he accepts it now, the others prevail, what's going to happen? It means in a lot of ways you are a traitor. You are with us, and they say this, instead of you telling them, hey, this is not good, you accept. That's the problem. So they have brought up unnecessary problems.
How do they go about resolving this?
It's very, very tough. They need some of the senior members to call all of them. I'm sure the best way would be to rescind the decision. That is the easiest way to go about it. If the decision stands, then you have brought divisions within the party, not only in Parliament, in the whole country. That's the thing. These people are the face of NDC. Butaka, Haruna, they are the face of NDC. How do you make this decision like that without even talking to them first. You should have called them. This is what we are thinking about because of this and this and that, and you talk it through. If it doesn't work, okay, they don't implement it. If it works, then they all agree and they do it. You didn't do that. You just ambush them all of a sudden. You can't do that. The party itself doesn't have power in parliament. They don't. It is the parliamentarians who have the power. So the party operatives cannot go to parliament and tell anything to the speaker, this and that, unless something the speaker requests the party officials to present. You understand? But anywhere in the world, it is not a political party that goes to parliament and tell them this is the one we want for this and this is the one we want for that. No, that opens the process to corruption. When you are MP, you are vying for seniority and leadership. So if the party apparatus can appoint whoever they want, then they can appoint their favorites. Then there will not be any peace in the party. That is the problem.
Dr. Makoba, I'm grateful for your thoughts here on Newsnight. We'll want to hear from you shortly, 055-1111-997.
Yeah, we'll go on to talk about the bond holders shortly, but there's just a communication coming in from the Office of the President, the appointment of a new Chief of Air Staff. And it's a statement signed by the Director of Communications, Office of the President, Eugene Ahin. It says the President of the Republic of Ghana, in consultation with the Council of State, pursuant to provisions of Article 212 of the Constitution, has appointed Air Vice Marshal Frederick Asari Kwesi Bequing as Chief of Air Staff with effect from today, Thursday, 26 January 2023. Now, this follows the completion of the tour of duty and subsequent retirement from the Ghana Armed Forces of his predecessor, Air Vice Marshal Frank Hampson.
You are live here on Newsnight on Joy 99.7 FM. Let's bring it the very latest now on that ongoing negotiations between the individual bondholders and government. Remember, they formed a joint technical committee. Well, that committee has wrapped up its work. A report has now been put forth. The finance minister is set to scrutinize that for a final decision to be announced. But in essence, both sides have agreed to explore mutually beneficial options that then would possibly lead to the exclusion of individual bondholders. That is far from complete yet because the finance minister must sign off on that. We'll get more on this pretty shortly. But my colleague, Mamisi Jamicha Thompson, is in the studio with a report that has been put together, jointly signed by the ministry's technical lead and the convener of the Individual Bondholders Forum. Mami, let's go into the details of this. What more do we have in there?
Indeed, Sir Evans, like you rightly stated, that this statement contains the positions of the both sides, as in the technical committee and then the individual bondholders. And the terms of agreement that was reached by the technical committee, I state verbatim from their statement, says that 1. Identification of key issues by individual bondholders and collective investment schemes in the domestic debt exchange program. 2. Explore mutually beneficial options within the debt sustainability limit that will lead to the landing zone of 55% PV of debt to GDP by 2028, resulting from the exclusion of individual bondholders in the domestic debt exchange program. And 3, any other matter consequential to the debt exchange program. And in their summary, their presentation of the summary of what they've also been considering with the individual bondholders, they make a key point that says that the debt sustainability analysis using the IMF framework undertaken by the Ministry of Finance shows that Ghana's public debt is high and unsustainable. The analysis shows that the PV of the debt to GDP ratio is over 100% against a debt sustainability threshold of 55%. This means that to achieve debt sustainability, Ghana must implement policies and programs to reduce the debt to GDP ratio to in present value terms by at least 45% points. And
they go to the key issues at play. And for the individual bondholders, the government must simply cut expenditure, and both sides have agreed. And this statement, I must indicate, is jointly signed by Mr. Samuel Akest, who is the director at the Ministry of Finance, and Senor Hossi. Both sides agree to make some cuts and the proposals that have been put forward. Can you run through some of the key highlights of some of the things that they've agreed to cut?
Indeed, so we have some of the key highlights, the inclusion of individual bondholders, as in, before we get to that, the summary of presentations, like you've rightly stated, that is going to destroy households' confidence and also the primary source of loanable funds in the Ghanaian economy. When we go down to the statement, they are indicating that they have to enforce the filing of interest coupon income on corporate instruments, and then going further, they are talking about expenditure. The budget provision for the energy sector shortfall of 23 billion cedis should be revised downwards by 3 billion cedis through the reduction of transmission losses, technical losses, and administrative inefficiencies. Also, cap the subsidies on the pre-mixed petroleum at 200 million Ghana cedis, thereby reducing the budget by 150 million Ghana cedis owing to the wanton abuse of this subsidy. Provide discount coupons to registered fisherfolks for the purchase of premix fuel. Also maintain the 2022 capital expenditure level by reducing the non-ABFA, MDA, and foreign finance capex provisions by 50%.
And this provision is very important because they in each of the proposals that have been now agreed jointly between the individual bondholders and the finance ministry, they tell you how much government will save. If in this one that says maintain the 2022 capital expenditure, they indicate that this will save the economy 10.7 billion cedis alone. And then they go on to talk about reducing the transfers to statutory funds, which will save 7 billion. You also have review and right size of MMDAs and SOEs. That will save 6.5 billion. Then they also agree a review of the free SHS program that will save 1 billion. In all, they talk about the proposed cuts will save a total of 83.5 billion.
Yes,
that has been put forward.
Indeed.
And the indication is that once this has been signed by Samuel Eckers and Senor Hosi, this is also agreed by the finance ministry. But let's get some clarity on this. Let's speak to Senor Hosi, who joins us on the line. He's a convener of the IBF, the Individual Bondholders Forum. Mr. Hosi, put this in context for me. I see the signature of Mr. Samuel Eckers on this document. Does that mean that the finance ministry agrees that these cuts will be done?
Not necessarily. Well, this is the work the committee did. We had put before the team these proposals, which were reviewed. Some of them were readjusted based on further insights that was submitted. You also have to take note of the fact that there were observations made by the government team that some of the proposals may be medium term. And we have also indicated, yes, some of them may be medium term. And Ghana medium term could be 2 to 3 years, thereabout. We have a 5-year horizon. So if it's going to be a medium term, it should be functional. I think the most important thing here is that we are not out there just making noise. We are here preferring real solutions that are very practical and at the doorsteps of government to make this entire process functional for the sustainability of our economy. Just trying to use debt operation to solve this problem is definitely not optimal. I've always said we need to be careful we don't turn this fiscal challenge into an unsustainable economic crisis. Households are the primary source of loanable funds. When we kill confidence of individuals and households in our financial system, we are doomed. People are now thinking of rather taking their cash and keeping it under their pillows, converting it to dollars and keep it in safes. All right? It is not a sustainable thing for a turnaround for an economy that needs much breather. That is why touching individual bondholders is not an optimal position that any policymaker must have. You don't do it. And you want to touch it at a time where you're looking at them wiping off about 77% of their wealth. You know, I'm not sure. I mean, some of these things were so well thought through, but we are hopeful that once this report is further reviewed by the minister will realize that there's absolutely no need to be looking at individuals as part of this entire DDE program. And maybe we should rather start looking at fiscal measures to really cure the problem. The problem we had started from the fiscal and must start solving itself from the fiscal.
And what does this mean then in terms of next steps now that this report has been put together at the end of the technical committee meetings?
Well, we are hopeful that we'll be meeting the finance minister for who will have by then will have reviewed this report and also share a perspective on the way forward. We practically have a few days more to go to that deadline. And for us, it's inconsequential. The position is clear. Individuals and collective investment schemes must be exempted from this entire program. The consequences to the economy are far-reaching when you include them than when you don't. So I think we should just keep it right, do what is right, and then really get moving together as a country. Look at the proposals, Evans. Which part of it is not that practical? What is it that government can do? But it's a hard job government must do, and that's why we vote governments in office. We need to turn around our economy, give it a breather, get a private sector to start driving things in our country. We have a government that's always crowding out the private sector, crowding out the ability to access capital, to invest in businesses. Look at interest rates and the challenges in there. We are fixing interest rates at high levels that make it unsustainable for us to revive our economy. Why? Because government is borrowing at 36%. If government is borrowing at 36%, how much will I as a businessman borrow? And if you are doing this at 36% for treasury bills today, how do you go around start giving somebody 0% and 5%?
So now, the deadline is just on Tuesday, so we are talking about 4 days. If you take away Saturday and Sunday, in effect, you have 3 days to
Yes.
go. So what happens now for those individual bondholders who are still uncertain because you're still talking, you don't have finality yet? What do they do?
I don't think there's anything uncertain here. What is certain is that when you actually take the DDE program, you are impoverished by 77% to 88% of your wealth. It means your 1 million cedis will become 120,000. Your 10,000 will become 1,200. So you have to decide how you want to die. I don't think that's what people want. People want to have. But if you maintain your current deal and you reject the DDE, you are going to be sitting pretty. Your wealth will be retained, will be restored. So nobody is going to breach. Government will not breach on its obligations under your current bond. Government is looking for a better deal that suits it. We have shown government how to really get money to sustain itself and all of us together without necessarily taking your money. So say no to the DDE. Don't sign the DDE. And if you have signed the DDE, we have published wording you should send to your bank and ask them to withdraw your offer on the DDE. If you're a listener here and you have invested in any of the mutual funds, data bank, you have your money at EDC, you have your money at Stanbic Investments or Tessa Capital, write to them and tell them that they do not have your permission or authority to be part of the DDE. The DDE will succeed without individuals. Government does not need individuals to succeed on the DDE. I have told you before, and I think I told the finance minister, I have businesses that are subjected to the DDE, and I'm going to be losing money. I believe in all of us supporting the government, but touching individuals would rather be destructive for the economy. So don't go there. It is a no-go.
And Senor, you just coming out of a meeting with Togbe Afede where the individual bondholders presented a petition to him. Talk to us about that.
Well, we were warmly received by Togbe, who apparently has been following the event and really shared very, very important perspectives on it. He equally believes that the expenditure and revenue portions of government should be the first place of adjustment. And the IMF has said it. You actually have three different solutions in trying to fix this crisis. One is a fiscal adjustment. And for those who may not understand that, it means government adjusting its revenues and expenditure behavior. Then the other one is structural reforms that will inject efficiency in the running of government. Then the third one is the debt operations, where you are looking at restructuring the debt and trying to negotiate it. Government, unfortunately, has been focusing on the third one, which respectfully is quite a lazy one. The hard work is for government to change its lifestyle. Government wants to stay big. Government wants to waste and spend money on many projects, all right, which we all know how things leak out or waste out of these projects. By trying to steal money from the private sector to sustain its own political goals. It is not fair. These are people who have trusted you and entrusted their wealth and their plans with you. The least you can do is to honor it. Don't abuse it. And I think that Togbe identifies clearly with it, and I'm sure your pressmen were here, and they will be playing back his own perspectives on the matter. He still, as usual, will definitely touch on the issues of interest rate, which were really germane, very important to this particular matter. Very, very important. How can the government be borrowing at 33% on the short end market and telling us on the long end market to take 0% and 5%?
Yeah, and Togbe himself talks extensively when he met you about his own concerns with this. And by the way, he is the Agbo Mafia of the Asogli State.
That is the reality. I personally look at the problem and what has been proposed and thought as follows. Probably the starting point would be to establish what those debt obligations are in the first place, which of course I'm sure are very well known to government, the base on which they've structured this proposed solution. Once we define clearly what our debt service obligations are, then the next step to actually take is to look critically at government expenditure and government revenues to see what can be done to enhance our debt service capacity. And as I said in an article I wrote recently, we should begin to look closely at our expenditures. Okay. What expenditures can we cut out? Maybe new, not very essential capital projects. What can we suspend?
And that's the Agbo Mafia of the Asogli State, Togbe Afede. Meanwhile, some individual bondholders, have been dealt a double blow as those promised to be paid from the amalgamated mutual fund after losing investments in the financial sector cleanup exercise still await their payouts, as we are learning after the first tranche was paid in 2021. Government defaulted in paying the other two last year. They now sit on tenterhooks, fearing that the current ongoing domestic debt exchange will wipe out all their investments locked up in this amalgamated mutual fund. One of the affected investors, Yao, spoke to us.
They paid the first portion in 2021 with a promise to pay another 20% in 22 and then the remaining 60% in the next 3 years. But last year, they did not make any payment. And they even had a courtesy of informing creditors there that they had not made any money. We waited and nothing came. People made calls. They were only told that they don't have money, and that was it. I do have some inner feeling that the AM fund may probably have invested the money in these bonds as well. That could be contrary to the Public Financial Management Act because it was government's own money that was approved by Parliament to be used to pay these creditors. It couldn't have been used to buy government bonds again. But it amazes me how the AM fund is dry just after a year after the entire 28 billion was approved for government to pay these creditors. So, this is why we are currently protecting the inclusion of individuals in this domestic debt exchange because there are a lot of people in my category who lost money in the first banking sector cleanup and are currently also going to lose money in the exchange. So, you are just telling us basically that we can't trust banks, we can't trust mutual funds, and we can't trust anybody else.
Senor Osisi with me. Senor, very briefly, this amalgamated mutual fund problem is a big one. One that we haven't spoken about often, but people are falling through the cracks. When they lost a lot of money under the financial sector cleanup, no fault of theirs, monies were then transferred to GCB Capital to manage for them. As you're hearing, the money, that account is empty, and it's now subject to the domestic debt exchange as well.
When I hear it, just quite sad. This government started on a good note. But every single time you see what's evolving, and all it is doing every day is to crush people's confidence in governance. And I think that, Mr. President, if you are hearing, please wake up to this coffee. This is not what Ghanaians mandated you to do. You can't crush the confidence of the average Ghanaian in governance. In the words of its financial system, led by your government, it must stop. Look, I walk you back to some of our proposals and just see how practical these are. We start and we are saying that you already have a gap in the tax application process in this country. The coupons you have been paying for corporate bonds, you are supposed to tax them. You've not been taxed them. It's in the law. We ourselves, we have shown you that you can make money. Over 100 million cedis there. You have production of oil that has dropped from the peak of over 200,000. They are doing less than 160 because the regulatory regime is not encouraging people to invest right. Fix it. You are going to get 3.6 billion. Last year we lost $300 million. All right. You take the ACA agreement, which supposed that ACA energy thing, that government is sitting there managing it in a laissez-faire manner. That is supposed to give about 100,000 barrels a day. If they focus on getting that thing done and the kind of gimmicks and jokes that are going around this stop, my brother, we are going to be making 5.6 billion a year as a country. All right. We talk about the property taxes. We've taken the census, 2.2 million homes. If you're looking at 50% rate and we are averaging 1,000 cedis a year per property, isn't that 2.2 billion? All right, you talk about VAT invigilation. When government GRA started, they saw VAT from the companies increase by 1,000%. It tells you people are under declaring. If you adjust your target by just 15%, what do you get? 3.5 billion. Look at the financial irregularities reported by the Auditor General 2015 to 2022, 13.9 billion. Go and collect the money.
I mean, these are really jaw-dropping numbers, and thankfully, you sat with the Finance Ministry. You presented to them. We're waiting to see what comes out at the end as we approach that deadline. Senor Hosi, thank you very much, and we'll keep a close eye on the next steps. That's Senor Hosi there as a convener of the Individual Bondholders Forum. And George Affe is joining me now with business. Hello, George.
We're picking up some progress on this debt exchange program because we understand that government is making some significant progress towards securing most of the stakeholder buy-in in signing up to this domestic debt exchange program. And audit of COVID-19 funds a precondition for submitting of Ghana's program to the IMF board for approval. But how will this impact on discussions for debt cancellation? The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business, Ghana Pay and Allianz Life. You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, government is making some significant progress towards getting the remaining stakeholders to sign up to the domestic debt exchange program. Now, this is what Joy Business has picked up from the final round of engagement that started yesterday and is expected to conclude today. The insurance companies, capital market operators, and pensioners are scrutinizing the proposals presented to them by government. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is optimistic of securing a deal with all the stakeholders before the January 31st deadline. Meanwhile, finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Lord Mensah, says all the interested parties must push for a good deal.
Clearly, I was disappointed with the kind of agreement they had with government. So I was expecting the bank to look beyond the debt restructuring. Listen, if government should, have that free space, what is the assurance that a government will be able to use the funds, judiciously to ensure that they revert back, the economy as expected? So going to the individual investors, I believe that they should go beyond. And the government must place something on the table, certain levels of assurance when it comes to the usage of the proceeds from this debt exchange. This debt exchange will allow government to have some levels of interest payments that is supposed to do free money, for them. And as a result of that, we expect this free monies to be used to revert or invested in areas that will bring back the economy.
Professor Lord Mensah is a finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Well, Evans, what we are picking up is that government has reached a decision or a deal with the Ghana Insurance Association in terms of their full participation in this debt exchange program. Well, what would this mean for the individuals as well? Some are saying that, maybe this might actually force government hand to actually excuse them, or what is going to happen. So what we are picking up is that they have reached a deal with the insurers in terms of their full participation in this domestic debt exchange program.
Government has locked down the banks. Now they've locked down the insurance companies. They set to lock down the securities.
Yeah, they're working on that one as well.
The one as well. If you lock down these three, if you look at the numbers, you won't need individual bondholders. And I'm not surprised that we are 4 days to the deadline, and we yet to hear an announcement clearly on the individual bondholders. We'll see. As Senior has said, it remains the same that the individual bondholders, that their chunk in the whole mix, if you need 80% to subscription to go, that 20% still requires an exemption for the bondholders.
And Evans, it's interesting that some news is coming in terms of the decision that has been reached between the Ghana Insurance Association and the Ministry of Finance. And it says that is the government of Ghana and the Ghana Insurance Association have reached an agreement on the participation of insurance companies in this domestic debt exchange program. Now, under this agreement, Evans, insurance companies will participate in the exchange on the similar terms as the commercial banks. So
5%,
yeah,
5% coupon this year.
Yeah.
And then an average of 10, I think.
9% spread for these 12 papers that will be issued. Also, we understand that the government, through the solvency window of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, will provide support for the insurance companies that are seriously affected by this domestic debt exchange program. The objective is to protect jobs and stability of the industry. The insurers are happy to reach this deal with government that protects the members, that are also enable the government to push through its necessary economic reforms in these difficult times. Now, this milestone is on the back of the success of the banking industry that has taken government closer to completing this domestic debt exchange program, and is issued by the government of Ghana, signed by the finance minister, Kenneth
It's a joint one.
Yeah, and also that is the Ghana Insurance Association, signed by Seth Aklasi. So it looks like some progress, Evans, has been made there.
That's more good news for individual bondholders.
Interesting. Let's see how things will pan out. Well, even the release of the Auditor General's report on how donors, the donor advance COVID-19 funds have been used, has been greeted with some shock. But the release is actually a precondition before the IMF board can consider Ghana's program approval. But how would this impact on the country's request for debt cancellation? There is more in this report.
Persons close to the IMF have maintained they pushed for the audit to see how government uses emergency funds. Therefore, it is still early days yet to give details on how the findings will impact on the timing of an IMF board approval when it comes to Ghana's program. Joy Business understands that the recommendations from the Auditor General and how government handles the situation post the audit may impact on future disbursements. The source close to the IMF also maintains that, together with Ghana's donors, they might put in place some stringent measures to guide future financial support for the country. The Finance Ministry, on the other hand, has maintained that the funds were used for the purpose which it was approved by Parliament. The Paris Club has already set up a creditors committee to begin work on Ghana's request to cancel its debts. Ghana is hoping to go to the IMF board in April for the board's approval for its program. The board, if it is able to sit during that month, then Ghana could get its first tranche of funds to support its balance of payment support.
Now, in a related development, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is optimistic of securing the required commitment for Ghana's international creditors to reprofile the country's debt and the possible cancellation.
We make an exceptionally strong case as Ghana, and I think everybody is looking for the demonstration effect from us. We did SLA in 5 months, and change hasn't been done before, the same way that we're expecting that we'll do this, and also sit with our external bond holders to also look at the future of the country, how to make sure that we protect their investments. But this is a period in which we all have to help.
Well, even in some interesting news, so you might describe it as good news, and that was the Minister of Finance, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, because banks have started paying the individual holders of cocoa bills. There was recently rollover when it comes to a different arrangement for the institutional investors, but the banks were actually instructed that
Government has returned their monies to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interested.
Bottom line.
And you remember that earlier this week, Emefa engaged the head of financial markets at the Bank of Ghana, and this is what he had to say with respect to this payment.
Currently, we are working with the CSD, looking at the data and seeing the quantum of individuals who were affected by this. I think that exercise is going on right now. Once we ascertain that, we are working with Cocoa Board to look at its balances with the various banks and see how we can quickly pay these individuals.
Well,
so that that is ongoing right now.
Are we sure if we are going to get it by close of week, by close of day? When exactly can I get my funds?
I don't have a date for you, but I can assure you that these individual investors will be paid, and hopefully that happens this week.
Oh, they've done well. 26th. Not end of week yet, and they've already paid. The money's hit the accounts early this morning.
We saw Emefa giggling in the studio, so some good news when she goes to her bank to get her money.
Not her directly, but some.
I see. Interesting. Well, even the discussion about the domestic debt exchange program won't end today, or maybe tomorrow, because tonight on PM Express Business Edition, we're engaging the former president of the Ghana Association of Banks, Alhassan Andani, former MD of Stanbic, to get his thoughts on this whole program, the impact on the banking sector, what should be the way forward, impact on credit extension. It's at 9 p.m. on Joy News and all our social media platforms as you engage Alhassan Andani on the domestic debt exchange program and the impact of banks in Ghana. And that's all for Business on Newsnight.
Thank you, George. Let's do sports now, Ms. Bao.
Yes, well, even Ghana's top scorer Samajan has added his voice to the call for a new coach of the senior national team. And according to him, the Black Stars need an experienced coach who will be firm in taking his own decisions and not allow interference from anyone. He emphasized that having a strict coach will help restore the national team to its position as far as competitiveness is concerned. The Ghana FA are on the search for a new head coach following Otto Addo's decision to resign from his post after the Black Stars early exit from the 2022 FIFA World Cup. And Chris Hughton and James Kwesi Appiah are among the coaches who have shown interest.
Well-established coach, like experienced coach, I think he's eligible to do it. Ghana is a football nation, so when you are going for Obi Sana, it's a Obia, or also like Obia, you are going to try because Ghana is a strong football nation. You can take an experienced coach, but you have to have a good coach who understands the game, who make the people understand his philosophy, who can take in charge. Say, and you say, we should now the never be means you have to be strict and be take in charge of what you are doing, and then because Sebio Mokofa Guardiola Somba open to me Bekanten of a
Asamoah there, and his last words, he says, if you go take Pep Guardiola as your head coach, nobody's going to tell him what to do, so get a coach who takes orders from nobody. Even that's it for sports.
Thank you very much.
Recently, I saw some TV programming. They were talking about Ghana's school of shame. And I was ashamed. Because of all the great things happening in the country, we want to focus on the negative. Can you look straight in the eye of these children and tell me they are coming from schools of shame? They are coming from schools of fame.
Well, after coming under a barrage of criticism for those comments, the Education Minister's handlers say he may have been taken out of context. The PRO of the Education Ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, says the minister is aware there are challenges on the education front and moves have been made to rectify it. We'll get to hear from him shortly on the immediate moves that have been made so far. But listen to him speak on the AM show earlier.
I believe that, to be fair to what the minister said, we don't have to take him out of context. As a country, I mean, if we look at the education sector, just like any other sector, we may not be at where we want to go, but definitely we are not at where we used to be. The minister have also admitted the challenges within the education sector. A lot of these challenges, I mean, it's not like it was born just yesterday or last 2 years ago. It's been systemic. It's been with us, even most of them even predates back before independence.
Well, we'll get to hear from the Education Minister's the PRO shortly, but my colleague Jojo Kobna joins me in studio. The way forward is what we are looking for. We hear the ministry say that moves have been made to remedy the situation. You've been in touch with officials on the ground. What are you picking?
Well, yes, I've been calling the Northeast region, and I've also been calling the Northern region, Pandai, and speaking with authorities. and they're telling me that they have received calls. Government wants to know the number of schools that have problems and also furniture. And so they have given the figures to them, and they are hoping that government will do something immediately about the situation.
Okay, well, it's something we want done immediately, and the PR of the Ministry of Education, Kwesi Kwarteng, is on the line. So, Mr. Kwarteng, key question: 34,000 children without furniture in Northeast region, 7,000 also in Pandai. When are they getting the furniture?
Okay, Emefa, thank you, and a very good evening to you and your listeners. So largely, it falls under the general challenges that we have to deal with within the education space. But thankfully, there has been some solutions, and we have a program to address that. Apparently, it started somewhere 2018. 2018, we distributed about 65,779 furniture across the country, including these basic schools. In 2020, we distributed about 54,000 of them to all basic schools across the country. 2021, almost 10,000 were distributed. Of course, 2023 is still ongoing. But cumulatively, between 2018 and now, distributed about 229,430. So the program is ongoing. But of course, with this one, there has to be some agency attached to it.
Mr. Kwarteng, you would have to position yourself and speak into the microphone because we hardly can hear you.
Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now, Mr. Kwarteng. So, me specifics.
Am I supposed to start over? Or?
No, it's okay. Specifically to what we've been talking about, because your minister has raised concerns about School of Shame.
In running up, what I'm saying is that there was an existing program in addressing these challenges, especially when it comes to furniture issues. So far, 229,447 furniture has been distributed across the country. But of course, when it comes specifically to this, the project or the program continues. And so hopefully, by next week, they are expected to receive the first batch, which is about 7,000 chairs in the region. But subsequently, other chairs will also drop. Like
so this 7,000, Mr. Kwarteng, which region specifically? The East or the issue in Pandai?
Pandai.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it here for now. We're grateful. It's just because we're out of time, but we'll make more time for this. Then we can talk to you further. In Karachi, we're bringing you that in our next series, amongst others, and you'd want to stay for that. You can watch Schools of Shame also on all our social media platforms. It's on YouTube, Facebook, amongst others. And that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of News Night. There's more when you log on to myjournalline.com. Evans, I am Emefa Apawu.
I'm Evans Mensah. Pharmacist Samuel Kodoko is up next on Personality Profile. He's the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana.